Welcome to another edition of TM3 Impact. I am super excited, and I want to welcome Stephanie Paxton and Robert Elder, the Ropax group. Man, I'm excited that you guys are here today.
We're excited to be here.
We're excited too.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, let's jump right in. Stephanie, I want to know your San Antonio Cliff Note version. Tell us how you came to live in this amazing city.
I migrated way back 26 years ago, before it was cool, from California.
Good.
Yeah. And so I was probably 20 years old, moved to North Texas. I was a professional horse trainer for like 15 years. My ex-husband and I had a great business together. And then when we were in San Antonio, I just stayed. I loved it. It's charming. It grew on me.
It does. Mm-hmm. This city grows on you really, really quick. We'll get back to the horse training. That's really cool. Okay, Robert, I need to know Cliff Note version, your San Antonio version.
Story. So I came, my family, my mom and dad had been living up here for a couple of years before I got here in 85. We were broke as a joke. We had lost everything in Laredo. Literally, they were sleeping on the floor of this just flea bag apartment off of Rector Street. And I went to Lee High School. And that was like my entry. Now, getting into real estate for me, I wasn't in real estate then. A friend of mine, Rafael Lada, his son, Paul, was my best friend. And he took me to the Dominion for the first time. And I was like in awe. I had never seen anything like it. And I was like, one of these days, I want to have something to do with this place.
Interesting.
So kind of weird.
That's interesting. Okay, so I want to spin off that just a little bit. So you moved from Laredo with your family, right? You get here. How old were you?
16.
16 years old.
Yeah.
And how did the Dominion come into play?
Because he had family members who lived out there. And it was one day we were checking on all their vehicles because they were, foreign nationals.
Yeah.
They would just leave all their vehicles in their houses. So Paul says, hey, let's go turn these cars on. Of course. So then I'm a car person, saw all these cars in amazing houses. And I was like, wow, I just never seen that level of wealth before. It's pretty amazing.
And that leaves an impression.
Big impression.
At least an impression, especially at 16.
Yeah.
All right. So, Stephanie, you get to the San Antonio area. You're in terms of the horse training, I'm always curious because that's such a very specific, highly trained area. Because not only are you have to be good with people, but you got to be really good with horses. Like, talk a little bit about that and how that you use that even today in what you do.
So back then I was better with horses than people.
That's funny.
But I got really lucky. So I met my ex-husband. We were training in North Texas together. We ended up moving here, got married, and he actually went to work for his parents, his dad. They started a family business. He had a horse that was gifted to him by his previous boss, and I had to find a place for him to live. So I was waiting tables trying to figure out a place for this horse to live. And then I ended up meeting somebody that knew somebody, and I ended up finding a job in New Braunfels. And a gentleman named Don Offerman, I'll never forget him, great guy. He and his dad had a beautiful ranch out there, and he was actually getting out of the business. And what I was trained in was what he was trained in, which was reining horses. And so he had a book of business and basically passed it on to me.
Whoa.
And so that's where it started. And then my ex-husband, Brad, he was like, I'm not loving the family business so much. So he actually started with me, and that's when that's when we started.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So explain reining horses.
Reining horses. So we were both trained in reining. Like if you've ever seen Yellowstone, when they slide and spin, and like that's an actual event. Back then, the NRHA, National Reining Horse Association, that's what we were training towards. But of course, God flipped the script on us. When we got here, there was not a lot of talent in reining horses. And so we just started doing all around horses, which we had no clue what we were doing. But our background in reining was kind of, it's pretty high tech, you know, as far as training goes. So we were able to transfer what we knew. And then that organically turned into having a huge business when we had kids that we hauled all over the country and had many world championships, Congress championships. And I mean, it was great. We had a great ride.
She's kind of a big deal on a horse.
I mean,
yeah.
By kind of, I mean, she is.
No, I know. I can stay on most of the time.
Yeah. Now, so how do you, because of that high level of where you were able to get to, obviously there's this idea that once somebody is able to get to a certain level in something, when they transfer over to another career, right? That level, you have expectations. So how have you taken that into your real estate career?
You know, no one's ever asked me this question, and thank you.
Yeah.
This is a great question. So we were at the top of our game, and, you know, we had standards. I mean, we never put a kid or a horse in the arena that wasn't perfection. I mean, it was like manes braided or, you know, banded, tails in. Kids looked perfect. I mean, we were known for putting out a great product, and it was consistent. And so I think that's what transferred over to real estate is we are consistent. I mean, even when COVID hit and agents were putting up like cell phone pictures and no verbiage in the remarks just because everything sold, we still hired a videographer. We still hired a photographer. It was our brand. We had to stay on our standards. So I think that's probably what transferred the most.
Consistency. That's so big. That is so big. So now, Robert, you see this house, and you got your license really young.
I got it at I was 19, turning 20.
That's what I remember.
Yeah.
And now your mom was also an agent.
My mom would have been was I wouldn't say would have been. She was at the time considered what we now call a mega agent.
Really?
But a mega agent back then was doing, you know, like 8 million, 9 million a year. I mean, like
that's a lot of money.
If you did that, you were on the business journal list.
Yeah.
You know, now, I mean, the business journal list is like, you know, massive numbers, huge numbers. Yeah. So I grew up around, you know, already listening to her negotiate and hearing her conversations about real estate. So I always tell Stephanie, it's like I truly had an unfair advantage when I got my license because it's like I'd already been in the business for several years, just, you know, via osmosis.
That's super cool. So do you remember your first listing, Robert?
Absolutely.
What year?
My first client was Vaughn and Ann Dixon. They pulled up in a Suburban there at the Dominion. They were. I literally can still envision them in my head. The sweetest couple ever. Cut off shorts, flip flops, an older Suburban, and you know they paid cash for a near $700,000 house. That was my very first client.
How did you get the call?
No, they were a walk-in.
A walk-in at the Dominion.
At the Dominion.
Took them from the walk-in over to. Were you in the Rotunda building?
Yep, in the Rotunda.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
They walk in, and I would imagine you're kind of just going, okay, let's go look at a house.
Yeah.
How long have you been in business?
Oh gosh, I had been in the business like maybe 3 or 4 months, if that. I didn't even own a car then. I was dating a girl, and I would borrow her Jaguar at that time. Yeah. So I looked successful even though I didn't have like 2 nickels to my name.
That is hysterical. Did you know this story, Stephanie? Did you know that story? Yeah. So you borrowed her car.
Yep. That's I'd go to work in her car.
But drove them over and they bought it. Just boom.
Yep.
They were ready.
Yep. Yeah. It was under construction. It was on Arnold Palmer, 44 Arnold Palmer.
And that house is probably worth what now?
I think it last sold at a little over $1 million, maybe $1.2 million. I mean, it's sold several times over since then, and has been redone. I mean, I follow it.
Yeah,
it's your first house. You remember it.
You're gonna always remember your first house. Now, so the one thing the reason why I really wanted you guys both to come in because I really feel like team is everything, right? I always, you know, I tell people anytime is that. Me getting married back in, 1999 was one of the best things that ever happened, awesome. Right? When you are married and you're a team and you're together and you're a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
And so tell me about the genesis of the Ropax group, how you guys met. We'll get Stephanie's version first. I want to get this version first.
Hers is good.
Right? And then how how that has come together even to today. And then we'll get Robert's version.
Okay, so, well, I was on a man diet, and when he first reached out, yes, and George Mercado, a mutual friend of ours, inboxed me and said, "Hey, I want to introduce you to my buddy Robert Elder." And I was like, "Thanks, but no thanks." I was like, not interested. Yeah. But he didn't know I wasn't rejecting him. I was just on a total
rejecting
man diet.
all men, all men in general.
That is hysterical. I've never heard that term before. That is real. Yeah. I like that. Keep going.
Yeah, and so fast forward. I mean, you were in Houston, right, or just coming back?
I had just come back from Houston,
and you called me. I mean, I remember he called me about a deal. I had a listing in the same neighborhood he had a listing in, and mine sold quickly and his didn't. And so he called. And so he was asking me, what did you do? I'm like, priced it right. Yeah. I don't remember. I had a snarky remark.
I have such a different version.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
And so, but then I went off my man diet, and I was just kind of dating this other guy that he was actually dating his ex-wife, and it was weird. And I heard all these bad things about Robert Elder. It was like Robert Elder he's an arrogant jerk and la 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 la. And so I just did not like him. Yeah. And then we went to Bold, which is Keller Williams, training, and I was in the back room standing up because I had a sciatic issue, so I couldn't sit. And he comes waltzing up next to me in a suit, and he's looking at me. I'm like, what do you want? And I'm like, I already was like,
You're like, get away.
And then he starts making me laugh, and I'm like, dude, you're going to get us kicked out of here. And he's like, do you want to go to dinner? I'm like, no, but okay.
Was that the start?
Yeah.
That was the start. So we got to thank Bold for this.
Yeah, no, seriously. Yeah.
And Steve Collins. Because I was meeting with Steve Collins one day, and he's like, because he was trying to get me off my man diet and get me to think a little bit different. And he's like, you just need to write out like your perfect man and what your version is. And I remember that I wanted a partner, like and I don't want this to come off wrong, but I didn't want to be taken care of. I didn't want to go marry somebody that had money, and I didn't want to be alone. And I just wanted a partner in life, somebody like that we could go together and build something. Yeah. And because I did that before, and it was like, so when we started talking that night, I was like, I could do this. Mm. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, Robert, your version, go.
So my version, same thing, George Mercado. The calling was actually later. I had actually messaged her on Facebook. She replied once, and that was it. Totally ghosted me. Yeah. Okay, whatever. Then, she was dating, I was dating, blah, blah, blah. And then I did call her about a listing. Yeah. And my version is that she was a little bit more than snarky, let's just say. Borderline arrogant, like, I'm better than you, and this is why mine sold and yours didn't. And I hung up the phone, and I was just like, well, And so fast forward then several months after that, and I knew that she was going to Bold.
You didn't tell me this.
Yeah. Well, because
there you go.
We finally got back on each other's Facebook. You had deleted me on Facebook. She had totally deleted me.
There you go.
And so, she's been to Bold 6,752 times. And so
you hadn't been.
No. I'd done it 5 or 6 times. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to go to Bold. And so of course, I get there all dressed up, blah, blah, blah. And I see her in the background, and I'm thinking to myself, well, she shot me down once before. I'm in sales. I hear no all the time. Screw it. I'm going to go try again. That's what went through my mind. Yeah. So close the deal. Yeah. The rest is history. And but I will say this, from the moment that I interacted with her that day, I was like, she's the one, period.
Wow.
Yep.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so then you slowly start coming with this idea of the Ropax group.
Yeah.
And so how did y'all start? Because obviously it was obviously because you had your brand, right?
Yeah.
She had a strong brand. You had a strong brand. Yep. And usually 2 strong brands, it's really hard to put that together.
For sure.
Right?
For sure.
It's difficult, not only from the stance of, hey, what is this going to look like? What is it? How did you even get to the point to that? Who came up with Ropax?
That was entirely her.
Oh,
and
wow.
we were in Vegas at a KW convention. It was not Mega Camp, the other, whatever it's called. And the family reunion. Okay. And she literally came up with that in 0.32 seconds, I think. Okay, let's do a name. Okay, Ropax. All right, cool. That was it. It was that quickly. But I'm gonna go back in time when we were, still carrying each other's separate brands. We did go to our first listing appointment together. It was horrific.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. We did not get the listing. It was a really nice luxury listing in a downtown high rise. Kids running around like little wild Indians. I mean, it was honestly bad. And then, we just didn't have our ebb and flow. Yeah. So I didn't know when to jump in with her, or she didn't know when to jump in with me. Timing was way
And
off.
I was so used to, like, I had at the time a very scripted listing presentation. I'm like, you're like stepping on my script, bro. Just like, and then he would like, he's all Mr. Relational and cool.
Right.
And I'm like,
You're down to business.
Yeah.
Let's get this.
She is like so, by the book, and me, I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
Stylistically, we are very, very different. But, now looking back, I think that's what's made us who we are today.
Yeah.
I've learned so much from her. And my business has transformed, like ridiculously more because of that.
No, that's huge.
Well, same with me. Like he's a real strong negotiator, and he's also a pest when it comes to like, following up with people and, and not in a bad way, but very relational. And so those are things I didn't have. I was very much a cold caller and very much a prospector. He was very marketing based. And so we had very different approaches.
Yeah.
But then what I learned from him and then what he learned from me about, I'm a systems and process person, this is how we do it every time and it's consistent. And, so it just kind of started to work.
Honestly, it's like from a business perspective, it is a match made in heaven. It really is.
No, seriously.
It is. It's ridiculous. The amount of growth that we've had since we officially merged our business is, I'm not gonna lie, it's phenomenal.
Yeah. So I'm curious. So Stephanie, but prior to when y'all were separate, basically, what would you do every year around about, your volume?
8 to 10.
8 to 10.
Yeah,
And then what would
like
you do?
12 to 15.
12 to 15. Okay, so you got 8 to 10, 12 to 15. And this is powerful for people to understand. I know you guys will expound upon this. So you add that together, it's about 20 million, somewhere roughly, right? And you go, okay, let's join forces, 20 million. But it didn't just go to 20 million, right? What happened that first year, the next year, and the next year? Go.
That was a lot. First year was like 21, 22 million.
Which
right
makes
around
sense,
there.
right?
Hey, and those are amazing numbers.
And great numbers.
Yeah, those are like big numbers. And then the next year was what, 32? Then 41. Then right under 52 last year. On this year, we're on track to do 65s, maybe 70, right around there. It's nuts.
So speak to this, Stephanie, and because you both do a lot of training. You do a lot of y'all went to, what was the one class you went
NLP.
to? NLP.
NLP, yeah.
NLP, sorry. Speak to this. How is that possible? How can two people, right, 8 million, 12 million, 10 million each, you're doing 20. How does that replicate and multiply to 60 to 50 million?
It's funny you mentioned NLP because I really think that was a transformation for me. We did 2 weeks in California and I was struggling because I wanted to be a coach. I wanted to get in the coaching side of it. And I was kind of burnt out on cold calls and real estate and expired listings. I was like, I would rather just, help other people be successful. And we went to NLP. We did lots of neurolinguistic
training.
It was training, but it was also like
very in depth.
I went specifically for my career. I was like, I want to know what I'm supposed to be doing, and I want to, what was it that we did several different things, but we ended up doing like hypnosis and full body catalepsy, all that stuff. But I came out of there, and it was almost like it was weird. Like a month later, I had no desire to be a coach. I wanted to go all in on real estate. It was the weirdest thing.
What year was that, Stephanie?
19. Yeah.
So it's
19?
right before the
Because it was
pandemic.
right before the pandemic.
I remember when you went, because I had a lot of questions, because I saw the videos and
It was
everything. I
crazy.
remember that. Yeah. Okay, so NLP was kind of, what do you think happened there? No, obviously the knowing, because you knew like, hey, I don't want to coach. I want to go all in on real estate. But what made you like make that switch? Because we all know Robert's all in on real estate.
Yes.
Robert's all in.
I don't know. I know it sounds silly, but it so much happens at the subconscious and cellular level that we don't even know about. And when we were just focused on that, and it was just like, you just knew. I was like, I don't know how to explain it. It wasn't like I had some epiphany. It was just like, all right, this is what I'm doing. And the other just went away. The desire just completely left. I had not thought about it again since.
I love it.
Yeah. I don't
For
know.
you, Robert, what was NLP? What was that?
Right. For my
how
biggest
does that happen?
My biggest takeaway. So like, she's the one that wanted to go, and she's like, "Hey, do you want to go to this?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." We went ahead and went, and I wanted to support her, for her journey. But my takeaway was, it was definitely eye opening. I will say this: in almost an arrogant way, I'm like, I would not allow people to question me or anything like that. When you've been doing it as long as I have, you just like, look, man, trust me. Okay, I got you. This, I'm working for you. I got, but I wouldn't allow someone else's goggles, their optics. And I didn't want to see that. This opened my eyes to that, so I could understand, okay, everyone sees their different story. The three of us could be in the exact same room, all see the same thing, but we're all going to have a different story to it. And now I respect that. So it really opened up my mind to the other story, someone else's other opinion. So
now that's powerful in real estate. Like that, and not only in real estate, but as a team.
Yeah.
Right? So because I would imagine when y'all first were working together, this was probably one of the most difficult things y'all probably ever did.
It was
right?
tough.
Like
Yeah.
in the beginning, because she has her goggles, her lenses, you have your lenses, but now you've got to figure out how do we meld this together,
Right.
and really create the yin and the yang, because you really have that.
Yeah.
with your strengths.
For
you
sure.
know what I mean?
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
cool. That is really cool. And very few people get to a place where they're willing to kind of drop their ego, drop the, like, okay, she's better at that than I am, right? Like, because I know my wife is better at most things than I am, right? Like, you just know, you know what I mean? So coming now into this season that we're in, we just had it announced, that it's official. It's a recession, right? I'm curious from both your perspectives, and one of y'all can jump in, is what is the story and the perspective that you're telling your clients?
Do you want to answer?
Yeah, I think I try to tune out the news, because ultimately, like, when I go down that rabbit trail, then I start second guessing and not being there present for my clients. I really think that everybody who has to make a move has to make a move.
Yeah.
If you're a military and you're PCSing, if you're upset, like today I saw the interest rate on the closing disclosure at 6.1%, and it's like, I haven't seen that in a long time.
Right. Yeah.
And so, but this is a family that bought a house, and he
And
got a
they're happy.
raise.
And
They
they're
got
happy.
they bought a farm. He got a raise. They wanted to raise their children, in that environment. So people move for different reasons. And I think when you get into real estate, everything, especially when you invest, because we're both investors as well, you think it's all about the numbers, but it's not. It's about where people are. And buying and selling real estate is not like what people think. It's not about numbers. It's about what's going on in their life.
Right.
And so when you tune out the news and just focus on the human in front of you, of how can we help you in this situation, the other noise doesn't matter. That's just my perspective.
Every day,
I love that.
Every day that goes by, there's always a reason for real estate, whether it's marriage, divorce, death, moving in, moving out, kiddos being born, kiddos moving out, raises like these people. They don't pay attention to the number. And that's where people it's really skewed listening to the news right now, because everyone's, it's the number. No, it's not. It's their life. And at the end of the day, life happens. Life just
And
happens.
it doesn't.
I love
and
that.
life
Yeah.
doesn't care if there's a recession or not.
Yeah. Life
Right.
doesn't care.
Yeah.
Right.
So
That perspective, if every agent could grab hold of that, I think the doubt, fear, right? Like anxiety.
Right.
I think a lot of that would start to subside, and you'd actually get to work.
right.
Right? You'd actually just get back to work.
When you look at the numbers of the other downturn that we had, 08, 09, of how many homes were still sold in the United States, it was just a bit under 4 million. So when you look at the numbers of, the craziest market that we ever just came out of, the number's just a bit above 6 million. Hello. Even in that time, which that was a bad time. I mean, I had tons of friends that literally went bankrupt. People that lost 50% of their valuation, but they were doing loans. I mean, if you had they put a mirror underneath your nose, and if it fogged, you got a loan.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
not like that anymore.
No, it's
So
true.
many things are very, very different. And I'm disappointed that either it's the fear mongers out there that are just, trying to stir the pot. There's one Patrick Bet-David that we just love and respect, but I mean, he's turned into a fear monger. And at the end of his show, he's promoting his big event. So it's like, so that's why you're doing this, so shame on you. I don't like that stuff.
Yeah. It's using, current situations in the news to promote or like you
For
say,
their own
fearmonger.
benefit.
It's for their own benefit,
Yeah.
which is unfortunate. That is definitely unfortunate. So coming to where like this very moment, I'm super excited. The cover of Luxury Home Magazine.
We are too.
Here's the crazy thing. I just got a notice. We're gonna get it today. It's coming today. Yes.
Cool.
So talk about this listing, because obviously people are gonna hear the podcast. I want to talk a little bit about it. We had a little event there. Not a little. I mean, what did we have? Like 200 people.
It was a
300
lot of people. It was a
That was
big
stinking
event.
awesome. It
Yeah.
was a lot of people
Thank
that came
you.
out. Tell us about the house, and then how people can learn more about this beautiful house that's going to be on the next cover.
Well, we have, I mean, I think she's like a sister from another mister. This woman we met, her name is Teresa, when was it? About 4 years ago?
Yeah, about 4 years
She
ago.
did one of her flips, and I just instantly liked her. She's just cool, down to earth, but she's young.
She's very young.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Super
she's talented,
Talent,
but
yep.
she just like in her way, just like, I want to do higher end houses. I don't want to do this anymore. And I'm like, okay.
I'm tired of this 600,000 to 700,000.
And then like she calls us, she goes, all right, I just bought this house. And I'm like, she's not kidding. She ain't messing around. But she's extremely talented.
Yeah.
She's a licensed plumber, commercial plumber.
Okay.
And
Master plumber.
Master plumber.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
That's
just
her trait.
That's
her-
Yes.
that's her main
but
company.
she's
and
an
then she has-
artist as well. Like we bought some of her art recently. I mean, she's just, I'm like, do you sleep? I mean, she's just insanely talented and a hard worker.
Yeah.
And so when she bought this property, I mean, everybody in Castle Hills was like watching it. And
Yeah.
I'm sure, I mean, it was just a big deal.
Right.
But what she created was just art. It
Right.
truly is. I
And
mean,
we
there's not a
really-
part of the
yeah.
house that's not stunning.
Yeah, we wanted to really support her. This will be about, I think, probably the 8th or 9th sale that we've represented her on. And I mean, this is her piece de resistance. You know, we really wanted to give her a platform. And, you know, thanks to your amazing magazine and publication, you know, she's going to have that platform. So it was a big surprise for us to tell her, hey, we kind of played it off like we didn't make the cover. Just kidding.
And Teresa and Robert are like brother and sister. They're arguing, and then I
know.
have to be the
We're
mediator.
always arguing in a
And I'm
playful
just
way.
But yeah, I'm excited for her because I really do
yeah.
think she's going to be one of San Antonio's, next special, developers.
For sure.
Yeah.
Now, so I remember the first house that I saw of hers. We did a class in it. It was back
Yeah.
in 2020.
Yeah.
It was in Allen
On
Heights.
East Terra Alta.
Yeah.
East Terra.
Yeah.
That was stunning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What she did there.
So that was one of like, you know, she started off in a very entry level price point.
Yeah.
Her flips, and were very, very basic. That was one of her very, very first like super elevated ones,
Okay.
and that was a beautiful house. It
was.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, one of the pieces of art that we bought 2 weekends ago was in that house.
Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. Actually, and then the one that you're getting too. So yeah, no. So we're excited about that. When we saw what she did, you know, we're like, okay, this person's special. Let's cultivate this relationship.
How did y'all meet? How did you meet, Teresa?
She was actually selling. She was the listing agent on her own house,
Oh, interesting.
yeah. So she is a
Yeah, 'cause
licensed
she's
agent.
got what doesn't she do?
I know.
I was like, what else does she do? Does she have a podcast? I mean, come on.
She probably should.
That's awesome.
But Stephanie and I went and visited her. I think she was doing an open house or something like that.
No, you convinced her to meet with us.
That's right. I convinced her to
then
meet with
you
us.
guys were
'Cause I'm a
at
tenacious SOB.
These two,
love
again,
it.
this is where I should have seen the relationship start. I saw it on the wall. They were discussing like realtor fees. And I'm like, dude, can you just come up with a number that makes sense to get in with her?
Right.
And so
we were already
they were
arguing.
arguing. I'm like, hey, Teresa, how about, let's do it for $7,500 flat fee. And she just went like, okay.
Like basically just, okay, give us a try.
Yeah.
And
And then-
after that, the rest is history. Like she would never hire anyone else. And she has her team.
Yeah.
You know, she has a great designer. She has a great architect. She's the great builder. She has her amazing real estate agents.
I love it. Now, here's what I just heard, and is the beauty of what you guys have built with Ropax, right? You've got the negotiating side, right? You get that. But you picked up on, let's just meet where she is.
Yeah.
When she
Yeah.
could see that perspective.
No, that's why she is
Right?
so important to the business. I mean, again, I will take this to my grave, and I'll say this, I've never been as successful as I have since I've been with her, because she has taught so much and brought so much to the table for our business. So it's like, yeah, she picked up on it. I didn't.
Yeah.
That was my arrogant side. It's like, I was like, oh, and she was like, no, let's do this. And boom, and now we have this great relationship with a wonderful developer in town who we enjoy working with. That's thanks to her.
I'm a good co-pilot.
Yes. Yeah, no.
I mean, or main pilot, right?
I was going to say, that's not a co-pilot, because I can walk away from the plane and the plane will do just fine. She'll be flying it. She'll be doing loop-to-loops and stuff.
She could take care of it. Yeah, like I know
the power. Have a coffee.
I know the power of what my wife and I have created, because I think back to Luxury Home Magazine, where we were both real estate agents. I don't know if you know this story, but Christina and I was a teacher for 11 years, and Christina was in real estate. She sold homes for Newmark. She actually sold in Evans Ranch.
Yeah.
And then she moved to the Mesas with McNair. She sold for McNair. And so when she got out of the business, she's like, I want to be a realtor. And I was like, really? And she goes, no, you're coming with me. She was pregnant with Enzo at the time. So we both get our real estate license. And we do that for about 2 years. And she was really, really heavy on listings. She loved to list. I think at one point we had, 20 listings, something crazy like that.
That's a lot.
Because she had made some relationships and we had some investors. And this was right in 2009. People were liquidating. And during that time, she's like, I think we should start a magazine.
Like, huh?
And so that was kind of the start of where we kind of came to today. And even when we went to purchase the magazine, when we went to because it was a franchise, when we met with them originally, Christina was supposed to start the magazine. And she was going to sell it, and I was going to keep doing my educational consulting. Couple of things happened in the mix of all of that, and I started the magazine, and it was a perfect yin and yang, because she was like, you can kind of be out there, because I'm a people person. I love being around people. Not that she doesn't, but I was like, that's the part that I kind of enjoy. It gives me energy. And for her, it was like, running things in the background, making sure that we had amazing things going on. So yeah, that yin and yang is powerful, and yeah. So to wrap this up, I think I'm really curious, if you were sitting across from an agent right now. So let's just say an agent was sitting in you, and they wide-eyed, because you get this all the time. I'm sure you guys walk into the office, an agent walks up, oh my gosh, like, hey, how do you do it? Yeah. Like, if there was one piece of advice that you could give an agent that was either starting, maybe a starting agent, and then somebody that's 5 years in, what would you tell them?
You start.
For me, I would definitely say constant learning. Arrogance is so big in this industry, and people, oh, well, I know this and I know that. And, 31 years of being in the business, I don't know it all, but I love learning about it. I mean, every day we start off our day trying to learn something, in our readings and what we listen to. We have our automobile university. We're either listening to, as we're driving around, to podcasts, YouTubes, books, constant learning to elevate your game, because the game changes. The game ain't the same from when I was doing it 30 years ago. Right. This game is moving quickly. Yeah. And so we really, really have to continue to stay on our A game by knowledge. By
learning. Okay, I'm going to come back to that. Okay, what would you tell them?
I would say it's a journey. I mean, all the things I didn't know when I first got into it and I was still closing deals actually helped me. And can I tell a quick story?
Please.
When COVID started, we turned down listings because we thought people were crazy because of the prices that they wanted. Mm-hmm. And the COVID agents didn't know any better. So they would freaking list them and sell them. And we were like, what is happening? That hurt us because we didn't know.
Yeah.
And then when we started catching on to the pattern, then we go, okay, we got it. And then we were fine. But I literally turned down a ranch that sold that I was like, there's no way this thing's going to sell. It's been on the market 5 times.
Exactly. It's been on the market several times.
And he was like, well, some California is going to come buy it. And I'm like, you think because we're come from California, we're dumb? I mean, no, this one was dumb and let it go. And that woman, they hired someone else and she sold it in a week.
Yeah.
But we didn't know what we didn't know.
Yeah.
So sometimes not knowing is good. I think sometimes we always look back and we think, oh gosh, if we only knew then what we know now. But I don't think so. I think it's good not to know. I think you just go into it, just embrace it for what it is, accept where you are, and just continue to grow and look at it as a long-term thing. You know, everybody thinks they've got to, come out swinging and, close 50 deals their first year. But if you close 5 and you can eat, go you. You learn something.
Seriously.
Next year, double it. That's, I think, would probably be just.
Yeah, I think there's a big misconception with agents when they're getting into this business. They immediately want to be a luxury agent when they haven't sold anything, and I'm like, okay, all right,
true.
Trigger, chill out, you know. Or they want to be doing, I want to be closing 12 deals a month. I was like, focus on one, because it's hard to get that one a month, So
and service your client and learn
Yes.
your product. I mean, that's and then your database. I mean, that's.
It's critical. So you called it Automobile University. I love that. So what are you listening to now? Right. I'm just curious. What are you listening to now? Is there a particular book you're listening to now?
I read about 4 books at a time.
The same way.
But what I really love is You're a Badass.
Oh yeah.
I'm reading You're a Badass at Making Money right now. She's funny.
Yeah, she's hilarious.
Jen's scenario.
Yes.
Funny.
She's hilarious.
Yeah, so I'm liking that one.
Okay. And what are you listening
I was
to?
listening to Ed Milet this morning. I'm actually reading
his
his
new
book as
book.
well.
Yeah.
So I'm reading his new book, but I was listening to his podcast this morning.
Okay.
And it was about branding. And I had a ton of ahas while I was listening to it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
During the podcast?
During the podcast.
Okay, I'm going to go check that out.
Yeah. It just dropped like 2 days ago.
Okay. So, please.
But I think anytime you're an entrepreneur, I think Elon Musk said this, like, what would you say, like, to encourage an entrepreneur? And he said, like, if you need to encourage an entrepreneur, you're not an entrepreneur. And I mean, God bless Elon Musk, because he's right.
It's so true.
It's so true.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's up to us to nurture ourselves and our mind and focus. And I think mindset is everything.
Yeah, mindset 100% is everything.
I mean-
This is an industry that you will get kicked in the gut and the teeth countless times a day, and then you have to get up with a smile and dust yourself off, because no one's gonna listen to your pity party. No one cares.
No one cares.
No one cares.
Yeah.
No one cares.
I always tell Robert, it's like every day is Disneyland and we're Mickey Mouse, You can't.
I love that.
I mean, but that's the truth of it.
No, seriously. Yeah. Right now, y'all are familiar with Ryan Holiday?
Yeah, I love him.
So Obstacle is the Way.
Yes,
Yes,
that's a great book.
I keep going back and listening,
a
to
really
that
good
book,
book.
And Ego is the enemy.
Ego is the enemy.
the enemy.
That was boy,
Real
man.
good.
For me. Boy,
Yeah.
did that ever speak to me.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a great book. I think that's anybody that's in the business. Those are books that they need to
Yes.
read. Especially, we actually read that during the pandemic.
Did you?
We were
Okay.
reading it in a mastermind during the pandemic,
Oh, really?
which was really interesting. But I'm curious, what is the book you most give away?
Ooh.
What is the book that you like?
For me,
you have to go read this book,
For me, I'm gonna go old school. It's The E-Myth by Michael Gerber.
dude.
Yep.
I literally
I've
tell
given that
every
book-
entrepreneur about that book.
Yep. I've given that book away countless times.
Yes.
Yeah. You, babe?
Oh, there's so many. I know The Go-Giver.
It's a good one. Yep.
I
That's a good one.
like that book. And then
Great
the one
book.
I love that I hold, dear to my heart, especially in the craziness of COVID, was Untethered Soul. Just
I've heard
about,
about that.
I haven't read that one yet.
Yeah.
being present, letting go. Because, I mean, so much of this industry, like, there's so much out of our control.
Yes.
And, to keep your sanity when you're doing a bunch of deals is just
Right.
to, like, let it go.
Yesterday, I had it was a phone call, as a matter of fact, on Hibiscus.
Yeah.
And a very successful spine surgeon moving into San Antonio. And we got into the paint hard. We started talking about watches and stuff like that. But he made a comment, and I didn't even share this with you. He made a comment saying, you agents who perform at an extreme high level, you don't get enough recognition for all that you do.
Wow.
And I was like, wow. He goes, yeah, you spend serious money on marketing, elevating yourself, promoting your clients. He goes, I have a lot of friends here that perform at a high level. He goes, I know your job is tough. He goes, so kudos to you. And I was like, that's nice, because you'll also see so much of the flip side, realtors, they're overpaid. They're this, they're that. And I was like, man, you know what? Spend a week in our shoes, buddy.
Yeah.
Spend a week in our
that.
shoes when we're closing 5 deals a week and all hell is breaking loose, and here we're just trying to keep it together for our clients, because at the end of the day, I know for a fact why Stephanie and I are so successful. It's because we actually care. We really do care.
Too much sometimes.
To a degree, too much. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the power of the success, right? Because people do business with people they know, like, and trust.
Right.
And when they know you and they like you and they trust you, right, they're gonna want to finish that deal and make it happen.
Yeah.
Well, listen, the Ropax Group. This is your first podcast together? Have y'all done one together?
We did one with Mark Jones.
Yeah,
oh,
Mark
that's
Jones,
awesome.
That's right.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad you were on the TM3 Impact podcast.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you. And you're going to be seeing that cover here shortly. We should have it here, I think, by 12 o'clock. So, yeah.
I'll be coming back.
Exciting.
I'll be coming back.
Super exciting. Thanks again. You guys have an amazing day and enjoy your TM3 Impact mugs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Love it.
Ready?
Love it.
Take care.